Good morning. Good morning, all you butterflies out there. Awesome. I'm so excited to be here with you this morning. I've got some really good things uh, to bring to you this morning, and so I see you starting to jump on. Wave at me in the comments. Let me know you're here. I see you coming on. Hey, Cindy. Um, okay, so I can see you jumping on, but I can't see who you are, who's on here with me. So unless you talk to me, so let me know if you're here. And if you're watching replay, just comment hashtag replay so that I can talk back at you. So excited about what I'm going to bring to you today. We have been talking about your voice, how to find your voice, what does that mean? What does that look like? And today we're going to talk about how to develop your voice as a leader. And I have a lot to say about this morning. So, we talked about over the last few weeks, we talked about, remember the Little Mermaid, and she was willing to trade her voice. And we talked about, what have you been willing to trade your voice for? And, so many times we've been willing to trade our voice for validation or acceptance or approval or even peace. I used to trade my voice for peace because I was afraid to rock the boat. And my motto for life was literally better safe than sorry. That was my motto for life. So as you can imagine, I made a very little impact with that motto. But I came up with a new motto for life, and this really this motto that for life really really helped me to refocus and think about what I want. And so the motto that I came up with, I heard this quote, and it said, ships in harbor are safe, but that's not what ships are built for. So let me know in the comments if you can relate to that, because yes, being at harbor is safe and feels secure, but that's where you get the barnacles, right? And so, that's where, a ship was not built to stay safe in the harbor. And so, hey, Margie, yeah, Tori, good morning. Good morning, ladies. So, part of being that ship in the ocean is really knowing your voice as a leader, and not being willing to trade our voice for anything. And so, here's what I want to tell you this morning is that as a leader, your voice is all you have. And, a lot of times we're trying to control things outside of ourselves. We're trying to control situations that we have no control of. We're trying to control other people. And this is where a lot of our frustration comes in. But we ultimately, we know we don't have control of those things outside of us, right? But the one thing you have complete control over is your voice. And as a leader, your voice is all you have. John Maxwell says, he talks about a leader, and he says that a leader with no one following him or her is just a woman or man out taking a walk. And so I felt like I was just out taking a walk for so long. Excuse me. And so my heart and my passion for you is that you find your voice and develop your voice. And so when you look back, you have people following you, because I know you are a leader. And so, as a leader, all you have is your voice. And I want you to type that in the chat, like as a declaration. I have my voice as a leader. And so your voice as a leader is what takes you from being understood to bringing understanding. Man, I hope you wrap your head around that. I hope you grab hold of that. Your voice as a leader is what takes you from being understood to bringing understanding. And I felt so misunderstood. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel understood for so long. But when I realized that I had my voice, I started using my voice to bring understanding instead of waiting for someone to understand me. And when I started bringing that understanding with my voice, I was understood. Your voice as a leader gives insight and direction. Yes, you have your own voice. Your voice as a leader, it gives direction and insight. And as women, so many times we are waiting for people to tell us what to do next. We are waiting for that direction. Sometimes we're even waiting on God. Waiting on a man, waiting for someone to validate us before we start moving in the direction that we know that we're called to move in. And so, your voice as a leader, it brings direction and it brings that insight. Your voice as a leader inspires vision and it refocuses your followers on the mission. So we're going to talk a lot about that today, your mission and your vision. But this is so, so powerful right here, that your voice is what inspires vision. And so you can have a great vision, but if you are not using your voice to rally the people around your vision, then you're more likely to be that woman out taking a walk instead of looking behind you and knowing that people are following behind you. And I know you on here. I know many of you on here. You are called to lead. And so your voice is what really brings your vision to life. You can have a great vision, but without your voice, it is, you're the only one that sees it, right? And so your voice as a leader inspires vision and refocuses your followers on the mission. So yeah, Tori, I love that. Yes, this is your voice is what gives you the muscle. It's like it's everything. But we've been taught as women to silence our voice, right? We've been taught, as little girls, like wait until you're spoken to speak. And so, maybe you've even been told like either, you're too much, you need to be quiet, or maybe you've been told, you're just shy. And guess what? I'm one of those shy, introverted women, but when I found my voice, my message became bigger than my fears. Woo, somebody type that in the chat. My message will become bigger than my fears. That's what changes everything. When you find your voice, that message that you're here to bring. And what is your message? Your message is everything that this life has prepared you for. Your life has prepared you for a breakthrough. That someone, my coach used to say to me, someone is crying themselves to sleep at night waiting to hear your voice. And I took that to heart. And so that fear that someone else was crying themselves to sleep at night, like that became a bigger motivating factor to me than the fear of judgment or the fear of failure or what are people going to think about me if I use my voice. Your voice as a leader reveals your story and it lights the path for others to follow. So again, like, you've experienced breakthrough, you've experienced things that you've gone through in life that can pave the way for others. And so, and you can keep it to yourself. Like, you can just, be a better person. You can overcome things. You can break through things and keep it to yourself, right? Like, you can just go on with life. But why not share your story, and a story that reveals and highlights your path that you took to break through, and inspire others with it? Because chances are you've been inspired by someone else's story. So once you've found your voice, the next step is to develop it. And so when you develop your voice, it unlocks the power of self-leadership. And so, talking about leadership today, I really believe that, I've grown up with leaders. Tori, let your mess become your message. That's right. And then when you let your mess become your message, and then you let your message become bigger than your fears, your voice is unstoppable. Your voice will change the world at that point. And so, we talk a lot about leadership and that kind of thing. But, I've grown up with leaders all of my life, and I've seen leaders leave a great legacy. And even step into amazing succession where they're passing the baton. But I've also seen leaders sabotage what they've created. And the reason that they do that is because their inner foundation. But think about, as a leader, you have a vision. You're probably a visionary. Like, you see things. And even if you haven't seen things, if you haven't been that visionary, it's probably just been because you've been afraid that, like, what if I actually dream of those dreams? What if I pull those dreams off the shelf? What if I actually start to think about them? Like, oh my gosh, my vision I'm going to see this vision that I've had all along. But it's scary, right? Because, it's the call on your life. What you're here to do is never within the confines of your comfort zone. So when you're not dreaming, when you're not fueling your vision, it's because of just fear of and it feels like safer to stay small and hiding, but it's actually more dangerous to stay small than it is to show up fierce. And so, as a leader, you can only lead others to the degree that you're willing to lead yourself without sabotaging your leadership. Man, that's huge right there. I hope you wrap your head around that and take that with you today. You can only lead others as far as you're willing to go without sabotaging your leadership. And so that's what's happened. I've seen leaders, they have these big visions, and so they grow, these big organizations, but then the organization, what they build, is bigger than their inner foundation, their belief in themselves, their belief in their voice. And so then they sabotage it to fit back on the size of their inner foundation. And so that's why I'm so passionate about developing women as leaders, so that you can go after the big vision, create the big vision, without sabotaging it. And the way that you do that is you expand your inner foundation. You're constantly working on your inner foundation. You're constantly working on growing from the inside out. And so developing your voice unlocks the power of self-leadership. And self-leadership is the truest form of influence. So I really believe that, so leadership is influence. And as we begin to influence our own thoughts, patterns, and emotions, then impact flows out of us effortlessly because it's coming from that deep, authentic place. So I'd love to know, like, what is one thing that you are taking away from this so far today? Type it in the chat. Let me know. As a declaration, what is one thing that you've taken away so far? And then I'm going to give you six ways to develop your voice as a leader. So let me know in the comments. I really want to hear from you. I know there's a little bit of a lag, but what are you taking away from this? What's rising up inside of you right now? I want to hear from you just before I go on real quick. What's waking up inside of you? What's happening? Yeah. Oh my gosh, Cindy. Yes, it's more dangerous to stay small and to follow. And I think that, great leaders are great followers. And so that following has been preparation. But it is more dangerous to stay small. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's huge. I'm so glad that you are taking that away. Yeah, you stop self-sabotage. Like, Tori, you can lead without sabotaging what you've created. And so the way you do that is by growing your inner foundation. And so these are great takeaways. These are life-changing right here. If you will walk away with this and own this, this today can be a game changer for you. Today can be that, stepping over the line moment for you. And so let's dive in. I want to give you 6 ways to develop your voice as a leader. And so the first way is that you have to reframe your mindsets. You have to shift your mindset from just surviving, just getting by, settling for average, right? Like just accepting the life that you've been handed and really creating the life of your dreams, and really stepping into that season of thriving. That is step number 1. The number 1 way to develop your voice as a leader. You decide, I am not settling for ordinary anymore. That's it. I'm done. If you will make that decision today and step over the line, you will see major things happen in your life, because I believe there are breakthroughs that are all around you just waiting. They're just waiting for you to be open to them. And we call this low-hanging fruit. Somebody type low-hanging fruit in the chat. There is low-hanging fruit all around you. In other words, sometimes like opportunities and opportunities and things that are all around us, like we think that we have to work really hard and climb to the top of the tree to get the fruit. But there is low-hanging fruit all around you. There is fruit. Yeah, Tori, I'm done. Yes, there is low-hanging fruit all around you. It's just waiting for you just to reach up and pick it. There are opportunities that are just waiting, like hanging over your head. But your lack of confidence and waiting and hesitating, like it's just blinded you from what's already available to you. I cannot tell you, like when I work with women and they go through the 12-week program, like all of a sudden they meet the love of their life, or one lady made her investment back 30 times and she didn't, like she had been working her business so hard. And then, she wasn't even working her business. She was so frustrated, and all of a sudden things started opening up, and she just like her finances exploded because the way she was thinking, I always say it like this, like the way that you show up in the world is the way that you are. So when you're talking about your mindsets, if you notice like a mindset that is blocking you, that mindset is not just blocking you, you know, maybe in your relationships, but it's also blocking your finances. It's blocking opportunities. It's blocking, it shows up in every area of your life. So when you commit to identifying those self-limiting beliefs, wherever those are engaged in your life, they you see the fruit of that, you see the benefit of that. And that's why, like, all the things, it's almost like miracles start to happen when women start to do the work. And so, yeah, low-hanging fruit. That's right. There is low-hanging fruit all around you. And so that's number one, is to reframe your mindset from surviving to thriving. And that takes work. It takes some work, right? It takes some digging. That's why I do what I do in Monarch University Life 2.0. We spend the first 6 weeks identifying those self-limiting beliefs, all the ways that you're sabotaging your success. And we reframe, I hope you reframe your mindset and get everything moving in the same direction. And so, you know, as human beings, we're either going after what we want or avoiding what we don't want. And in most cases, we're avoiding what we don't want. You know, we don't want rejection. We don't want, you know, disapproval. And so, again, that's why we silence our voice. Okay, number 2. Re-script the narrative you've been telling yourself. So being brave enough not to settle, but really rewriting your story from a powerful perspective so that you can mine the diamonds of your past instead of just seeing them as lumps of coal. This right here was a huge turnaround for me. This was a major shift because I was stuck in this I was telling myself this old story that what I had been through had disqualified me. And I had this old story, I had this old narrative going on in my head. And one day I decided, like, wow, what if I just rewrote the ending and the way that I wanted to? And if if you've read my book, Summoned to Soar, 5 Stages of the Rise of a Woman, if you haven't read it, I want to encourage you to go get it. It's on Amazon or I'll post a link in here, maybe in the comments. But if you haven't read that book yet, I want you to go read it. And if you've read it, one of the things I talk about is Queen Esther in the Bible. She had an opportunity to save her whole people group. And so she had an audience with the king, and the king had already told her, I love you so much, you can have whatever you want. But if you read the story, she gets down on the ground and she's throwing a fit, basically. And so the king extends his golden scepter to her and he says, go write it the way you want it to look. And I know that that's one of the callings on my life, is to help you go write it the way you want it to look. Instead of waiting for others to write your story, instead of being like a secondhand role or just an extra in your own life, right? So I help you rewrite your story as the hero or the heroine of your story, because when you are the heroine of your own story, it's not selfish. Watch this. When you're the heroine of your own story, people read your story or they hear your story, they see themselves in you, they become the heroine of their own story, which inspires them to slay the dragons in their own life. And so it's really important that you take the time to rewrite your story, re-script the narrative that you've been telling yourself, and then rewrite your story from a powerful perspective, and you get to write the ending. Somebody comment in the chats, I'm rewriting the ending. You don't have to settle for the ending that you've been given. This is not the end. Type that in the chat as a declaration. I'm rewriting the last chapter. Woo! Okay. Step number 3, reestablish your intrinsic core values. Really take ownership over your core beliefs without settling for living in the beliefs of other people and what you've been told, who you've been told you should be or what you should think. This is really important because in most cases, most women, the reason, if you've ever said like, I've got, I don't have good boundaries, your core, your intrinsic core values are your boundaries. And so we do a lot of work around this in Life 2.0. We spend a lot of time helping you identify what are your intrinsic core values, what are the values that drive you when you don't even realize it. Because once you identify those and then you commit to those, the people in your life that you're connected to, that that you feel like, the relationships that are causing you the most problem, it's most likely an intrinsic core value issue. If you're saying yes to things that you don't want to say yes to, if you said no to things that your heart was longing to say no to, if you've settled, those are intrinsic core value issues. And so we do a lot of work there. So that's a very important piece of the puzzle in developing your voice as a leader. You have to know, what do you stand for? What will you risk for? These are your intrinsic core values. Reignite your passions. That's number 4. You have to reignite your passions. And so many times people say, well, other people are my passion. I don't want to know what are your passions, like what do you do, the ways that you give. I want to know what lights your soul on fire. What do you do for you? What do you do to fill your own cup? Again, we spend a lot of time here in Life 2.0 really identifying what are your passions so that you never have to pour from an empty cup again. Once you know what your passions are, you always have those at your fingertips and you can always go back. This is the way you refresh yourself and become refueled. Reawaken your potentials. Number 5, tapping into your limited potential and then harnessing the power of your next level potential. So this is a big shift right here that a lot of women, after we do this work together. So a lot of times we're taught like your potential is limitless, right? And it is. So your potential is limitless. But if you're going after your limitless potential, that becomes a way of self-sabotage because it feels so big that you don't know, that then you're just like discouraged and you just were like, well, I'll just settle for where I'm at. So it's really important to identify what is your next level potential. And that is a way to develop your voice as a leader, because if you know what your potential is, you know how to lead yourself. You know where to lead yourself. You know where to take a stand. You know what to take a risk for. You know who to connect to. You know who to disconnect to. And then the last point is just to reconnect to your mission, vision, and purpose. So again, just being super, super intentional about these things, living with a sense of mission, being guided by your vision. This allows you to be purposeful and intentional, to use your voice intentionally instead of aimlessly and inauthentically. And so there's a quote that I love, and it says, if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it every time. And I find that, yeah, girls, I just saw your comments. I'm rewriting the ending. That's right. You get to rewrite the last chapter. And I think life has surprises along the way, but if you rewrite your story, if you rewrite the ending, at least you've opened yourself up to new possibilities, and then you can partner with life, and life just brings surprises along the way. But reconnecting to your mission, vision, and purpose allows you to be very intentional about then creating this life that you've now rescripted, that you've rewritten. Instead of just living aimlessly, because I find that most women are just kind of that quote I just said, like, if you aim at nothing, you hit it every time. And so that's where a lot of frustration comes in. If you felt frustrated, if you feel, it's because you haven't had that clarity of what you're running after. Amelia Earhart, I'm sure you've heard that name. She was the first woman to cross the transatlantic flying solo in the 1920s. And so, they asked her, and this is when only men had done this up until now. And they said, well, how did you do that? And she said, well, I didn't know what I was doing. I was skilled, but it was my confidence that allowed me to really get it done. And they said, well, what does that mean? What is confidence to you? And she said, confidence is the willingness to go after my impossible and the belief in myself that I can make it happen. And so all of these steps that I've given you today, these culminate into your impossible. When you clarify your impossible and you begin to run after it with clarity, that's where confidence is just unleashed. It's like a lion that's waiting to roar out of you. And so, this is how you develop your voice as a leader. So if you feel like, maybe you've got a tribe, but you feel like you're just herding cats, or you feel like you're just out taking a walk by yourself, if you've just kind of become who you should be, who they said you should be, then I just want you to consider enacting these 6 steps in your life. So you can do this on your own. You can take the time to figure this out and do this work. This is what I do. If you want help doing it, I'd love to jump on the phone with you, and I can let you know how we can, in 12 weeks, you will not recognize the woman you've become. That's how powerful this is. And so some of you on here have gone through this with me, and maybe you can give me a big amen if you've gone through this. But, if you're tired of waiting and just hesitating, and you're tired of trying to figure it out on your own, private message me, leave a message in the comments. Whatever you do, like, let's get together. Let's get on the phone together. Because my passion is to develop you as a leader. And because there is more money for you to be made, there are more lives for you to impact. Your voice needs to be heard, and there's a legacy that you're here to leave. And I want to speak that to you and stir that up inside of you. And all this, listen, girls, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you this right now. This really has nothing to do with you. This has everything to do with your children, your grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren. What legacy are you going to leave for them? That's why you have to develop your voice as a leader. It's not even because of you. It's because there's a legacy that you're here to leave, and there are people coming after you that you need to leave. They need to hear. You need to pass that baton to them, and this is how you do that. So, okay, I love you, girls. I'm here for you. Please reach out if you're ready to really just reinvent your life from the inside out, rewrite your story from a powerful perspective, and live with purpose, and be the leader that you were created to be. I love you all. If there's somebody in the group that they need to hear this, please tag them, invite somebody into the group. I love you. I love you. I love you. I will talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye.